Namaste, viewers. Jaipur Dialogue USA welcomes you, and this is Vibhuti Jha as always. And you know me, we have been doing this for a while, and we will continue to do this for a while. So, just before we begin, please like, subscribe, and support our channel. And today we want to talk about an issue that has always triggered in my mind based on what we are seeing that is happening around us. Are Hindus facing an existential threat? The reason why I say this is that we witness that, including our homeland, mother homeland, Bharat, and globally, we are being maligned systematically as some kind of an evil, as if we are the ones who are at the root cause of all violence, religious conflicts, and what have you. We are ridiculed, we are attacked, as if we are some kind of an evil. And I have often said this here and will repeat it. This is despite the fact that a senator once told me that we love you Indians as immigrants to this country because you are professionals, you are hardworking, you are in the highest median income, you have family values, you take care of your children, you are not a law and order problem in any part of the world as an immigrant community. Yet, we ask for nothing. That's a very important element. We ask for nothing. This is what is important. Yet, we are being attacked. Give you an example. 4 years ago, I had done this very topic. I had invited two guests, and both of them eventually opined that yes, we are facing an existential threat because attacks on us are very well planned, plotted, and executed. Think about it. That was a time when the caste files had not even started here, the caste attack, but it was in the making. There is another issue that is very important. All these things, our haters are plotting and planning and executing their agenda against us very viciously. But we seem to be not aware of it nor cognizant of it. So, to talk about this matter, I have greatest of pleasure in welcoming Sri PVR Narasimha Rao ji from Boston, and whom you many of you know because he has been on my friends P Guru channels with Sri Ayerji many times. So, Narasimha Rao ji, आपका स्वागत है. You are welcome. And please don't get intimidated by my use of Hindi at times. You are free to speak in any language you want other than other English and Hindi. So I'm honored to have you on my show today. So,
Namaste.
what do you think about the topic that I have talked about, and how do you relate with that?
Yeah, Namaskar Vibhuti Ji, and Namaskar to all your audiences. Uh, yeah, it's a very interesting time in the history of Hinduism, in the history of Bharat, and the people of Bharat who have now moved to various parts of the world. People who originally lived in Bharat inhabit almost every country in the world these days. There are Hindus in many countries, but what you said is very true. There is a concerted pattern of attack on Hinduism. Let's take a step back. I think see, if you go back in history a few millennia back, Hinduism was one of the dominant religions of the world. Sanatan Dharma extended across the Akhanda Bharat, and if you look at Akhanda Bharat, the several parts of Akhanda Bharat are now converted to other religions. If you Akhanda Bharat extended from Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Burma, and some Southeast Asian countries also. And now we have, but one thing you have to remember is in India, if we focus on India as a country, and if we focus on Hinduism in India, there are still 80% Hindus in India. So I just want to take a balanced approach. There are 2 points I want to make. First of all, to say that there is no attack against Hinduism, there is no danger to Hinduism, is really naive and foolish. At the same time, to think that Hinduism is about to be wiped away, it is about to become extinct, is also not really wise, because if you look back 1,000 years back or 500 years back, when there were foreign invaders who came to India to spread their own religion, they killed people to force them to convert. The Hindus were basically under tremendous attack at that time. So Hinduism survived that time, and comparatively now, Hindu Hindus are still a majority, and India is not being ruled by barbaric rulers belonging to a different religion. Of course, people may despise the secular rulers of India also. If you look at the recent history, the rulers of India were not really pro-Hindu. But the thing is, at least they are not actively trying. They are not using the force of the state to convert Hindus to other religions like happened 400 years back, 500 years back, or even 200, 150 years back. So, what I want to say is Hinduism has faced existential threats for a long time now, for almost a millennium. Hinduism has, or let me use the word Sanatan Dharma instead of using the word Hinduism.
Yes.
Hinduism is a given to us by foreign invaders. So let us use the word Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma has faced severe threats for the last about 1,000 years or so. So, in my opinion, compared to that, compared to how we were a few centuries back, we are actually better off. There is more awareness, and also the threat is more subtle now. Earlier, it was at the physical level. There were people basically uh, threatening to cut off your head unless you forced to you convert to a particular religion. But now things are different. But the thing is, those forces, the descendants of those forces, are still spread across India and also across the world, and they're still pursuing the same agenda. But it's not as blatant, it's more subtle compared to a few centuries back. So I do agree that there was an existential threat to Hinduism over 1,000 years, but I believe the worst is behind us. But at the same time, I don't want us to be complacent. I'm not suggesting that Hindus should be complacent. There are threats to Hinduism from outside as well as from inside, as was the case in the past also. In the past, the foreign invaders could not have succeeded without help from some Hindus also. Some Hindus colluding with them was a contributing factor. Similarly, now also there are some forces within Hindus, uh, among Hindus, who are basically weakening Hinduism, who are acting against the interests of Hinduism. So that basically is one thing I want to point out. Basically, there are threats, but they may be exaggerated in the minds of people. At the same time, don't be complacent. Now, I want to take a step back and point out one more thing. Whenever somebody attacks anything, whether it's a religion or a country or a concept or a technology, whenever a group of people or something is being attacked, the attackers, smart attackers, they study you. They find what are the natural inherent fault lines in the particular entity that they are trying to attack. And if you look at whether the Islamic invaders or later the European invaders, they did a good job of studying Hinduism and identifying some fault lines. When I say fault line, I don't mean it's a terrible mistake or Hinduism is at fault, or that's not what I mean to say. Every entity has some fault lines. Whether if you take Islam, if you take Christianity, or if you take the very concept of democracy, forget about religions. There are fault lines in that also. Any concept, any human created concept has some inherent fault lines. So if you want to bring down something, you want to identify those fault lines. You want to exaggerate those fault lines. You want to create your narrative and arguments centered around those fault lines. And unfortunate to say, but especially the Europeans, they really succeeded in using the fault lines. For example, the Varna system that we had in India is just a classification based on the function in the society. It has nothing to do with somebody's birth. If you look at the old days, Vishwamitra was born as a Kshatriya. He was born to a king. but he became a Brahmana through his karma, and he also became a Maharshi. If you look at the Shastras, it is not said anywhere that son of a Brahmana is Brahmana. Brahmana, if you look at Vishnu Sahasranama Stotra Phalasruti, it says, Vedantago Brahmanasya Kshatriyo Vijay Bhavet Vaishyo Dhanasamruddhasya Shudra Sukhmavapniyat. So one who's also Srimad Bhagavatam does Bhagavata Purana does a fantastic job of defining the Varnas. There is a section there where Sri Krishna defines Varnas. What are the qualities of different Varnas? So somebody who's interested in God, who's interested in the welfare of everybody around him, very kind and very spiritual, and guiding everybody selflessly, that is a Brahmana. Somebody who pursues valor, strength, physical strength, and uses it to protect everybody around him or her is a Kshatriya. Like that, the qualities of the four Varnas are clearly defined in our Shastras, and those who fall outside these Varnas are Chandalas, basically. Though, because if you look at the definitions, all the four Varnas are really doing great job, doing performing different functions in the society. And those who are selflessly as a whole, basically society functions nicely because all the Varnas do their job. Now, one more thing, normally when people criticize the Varna system, they say, oh, people say that British invented it, but it was already there. For example, in Purusha Suktam, you have Brahmanosya Muhmasid, Bahu Rajanjah Kratah, Uru Tadasya Tadvaisya, Padbhyang Shudro Ajayata. It says, it describes the Paramapurusha, who is basically the supreme cosmic being of whom the entire cosmos is a part. All the worlds that we can perceive are tiny parts of that supreme being. Of that being, from the Mukha, Brahmana was born. From the shoulders, from the hands and shoulders, Kshatriya was born. Like that. And it says, Padhyam Shudro Ajayata. So from the feet, Shudra was born. So some people use this to say that Shudras are lowly, Brahmanas are highly. But the thing is, that was never the way it was practiced for millennia. You look at the history. For example, another example other than Vishwamitra, if you take Valmiki, he was born as a Shudra. He hunted birds and lived. But the thing is, he was given the Mara mantra, and then he realized God. In the end, he is not only recognized as a Brahmana, but also as a Brahmarshi. So in the old days, Varna was a very fluid concept. It is based on, Varna literally means color. It is the color of your mind. It is your aptitude. So when you say Brahmana is the face, is the face of the supreme being, basically that is where the brain is, that is where the intelligence is, that is where the guiding factor is coming from. But it doesn't mean feet are unimportant. If you cut off somebody's legs, the person cannot survive, the person cannot move, cannot do anything. So feet are doing a great job of carrying all the weight and maintaining that person's existence. And hands are the body part through which you actually act in the world. Actions are very important. Whatever you do is with your hands. So Kshatriyas are important. It doesn't mean that one is lowly. This is never about inferiority or superiority. It's about the function that you fulfill in the society. And of course, if somebody is born to a Brahmana, he will see his father, his or her father, reading Vedas or reading Puranas, thinking about God, and guiding people with a very balanced and equanimous mind. So people naturally pick up the Varna of their parents. If the father, whatever work is whatever attitude and work the father is doing, genetically you are likely to get those qualities. And apart from it, environmentally you are watching your father while you grow up, so you imbibe those qualities. So the chance of the son of a Brahmana becoming Brahmana is very high. Similarly, the chance of a Kshatriya son becoming a Kshatriya is very high. So that is why it basically continued in the family, but it was never meant to be rigid. It was always fluid. But the problem is, because there is a classification, even if it is very meaningful. See, if you look at current society, we have classification as lawyers, engineers, doctors, etc. It does not mean one is inferior, one is superior. They're just playing different roles in the society. Similarly, these were basically a classification based on the roles people play in the society, and people seized on this. They exploited this. The foreign invaders exploited this, and try to create a division, try to make it more rigid in the minds of people, try to make it more try to basically use it as a dividing tactic. They basically told these are higher cash, they're exploiting you. That was never the case. The correct brahmanas in the old days, they were just selflessly guiding people. They were not really after any power at all. They were just guiding people. And even now you find so many brahmanas, so many priestly class, and so many brahmanas who don't really want to control anybody. They just mind their business. They focus on God. They are as helpful as possible to people. But the thing is, the narrative has been created. This has come from the Eurocentric European attitudes about priests versus peasants and all these divisions that existed in the European society. They just applied those blindly and used the same tool set that was used against them in Europe, and they basically created this narrative that Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are getting you, they're exploiting you, they are higher than you. And then the thing is, there are two things that happened. The 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 narrative basically played into the minds of people. So some people started believing that they were being exploited, and there was resentment against the other groups of people. And then even the people at the top, they did not really protest. They did not say this narrative is wrong. For example, the Brahmanas of the last millennium, they did not protest and they did not say this narrative is wrong. Uh, I want to go back and take a step back and talk about another important change that happened in India that probably was behind all these foreign invasions being successful. When Buddhism was about to take over entire India, when basically after Buddha, there were a lot of Buddhist monks going around India and teaching Buddhism. It's basically very similar to what we have a subset of Hinduism, of Sanatan Dharma. Basically the core Vedantic concepts were taken in isolation and they were intellectually appealing. And also Kali Yuga is a time of more logic, more basically material things, more surface things rather than core things. So things that are intellectually stimulating have a chance of appealing to people. So Buddhism was really appealing to Indians and it was really taking over India. At that time, Adi Shankara came and he emphasized Vedanta. He went back to Advaita Vedanta, which is absolutely the ultimate truth. But the thing is, what really 99.99999% Hindus need, practicing Hindus need, is not really Advaita Vedanta. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, all is verily Brahman. It doesn't really matter in your daily activities. It doesn't really inform you of what your dharma is. So, unfortunately, the focus on Vedanta, the focus on Gnana as opposed to Karma, and that resulted in de-emphasizing karma, de-emphasizing the role of action. Basically, a kind of fatalistic attitude of, oh yeah, God will take care of things. See, God will take care of things if you basically you are the instrument. God is just a spirit that fills the whole universe, and you, me, all the people, all the animals, all the living beings in this world are the agents through which God basically acts. God doesn't directly act. God acts through various agents. We're all agents. Let me give an example. If you have a playwright come director, he's directing a movie. Suppose you're an actor. Having the attitude that my director will take care of things, he knows what he's doing, is perfect. You don't basically worry too much about why is this scene written this way, why am having to act like this. You basically leave it to the director, believe in the director's vision. But as you show your ability to act different kind of scenes, director will know your ability and write such scenes for you. If you just basically, if you think that I will do nothing and the director will write the right role for me, director doesn't write the right role for you. He will write something very bland. As he knows, as he sees what you are capable of, he will write more and more scenes that are taking advantage of the actor in you. Similarly, as a human being, as we do our dharma sincerely, as we do more and more actions, God will put us in better positions. affect the right changes in the world. So, and also if you go back to old days, if you, for example, if you look at Vasishtha's teachings, what happened to the camera? If you look at Vasishtha's teachings to Ramayana Bhagavad system, there is a very beautiful word there. The bird of individual self flies into the sky of infinite self, the undivided self, by flapping two wings of gnana and karma, wisdom and action. You don't become liberated just with wisdom. If a bird flaps only one wing, it doesn't fly. It needs to flap both the wings, and there has to be a balance between both. So, gnana and karma are the two wings of the bird of individual self. Only by flapping both in balance, in harmony, can you fly into the infinite sky of undivided self. So, Vedanta is good, but the thing is, what happened is, even though that was not the intent of Adi Shankara, several latter day pseudo intellectuals who were basically expert commentators in pseudo Vedanta started de emphasizing karma, action, the role of action. So the focus was put more on detachment and leaving it to God. God is doing everything. So that kind of resulted in an onset of a kind of fatalism in Hindus. In other words, what Sri Krishna taught in Bhagavad Gita. See, for example, Bhagavad Gita is the greatest text of Vedanta. But the thing is, it doesn't say leave it to God. It says do your dharma sincerely, but leave the result to God. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So Sri Krishna says God is the giver of the fruits, so leave it to God. Whatever fruits are destined will come, but you have to put in your effort. You can't shy away from it. The whole Bhagavad Gita was about inspiring Arjuna to fight a war. So knowledge should not stop from engaging in dharmic actions. Engaging in action is our sacred duty, but giving the right result is God's prerogative. At the right time, God will give us the right result, but we have to keep acting. Unfortunately, I'm not saying all Hindus, but many Hindus kind of lost this in the last couple of millennia. So slowly, after Adi Shankara, slowly the action-oriented Hindu became little weaker, and there was basically less focus on action. More basically, if you are spiritual, you are detached. But the thing is, detachment doesn't mean inaction. Unfortunately, they became equated in the minds of many people. What Sri Krishna taught is detached actions, nishkama karma, without caring about the fruit, whether the fruit, intended fruit came or not, doing the actions. What ended up happening is it resulted in nishkama nishkarma yoga. Basically, no desires and also no actions, inaction. Of course,
No,
now
this is this.
with the onset of materialism in India, modern India, there is sakama nishkarma yoga. Basically, you have a lot of desires, but you don't want to act. You just want to sit in a couch and want to get everything. So anyway, so what India lacked was basically going away from karma yoga, and that basically that was a disastrous mistake. You have to do your dharma sincerely. Of course, there are exceptions like Shivaji Maharaj, etc. There are. I'm not saying all Hindus fell into this trap, but this is a trap that affected many Hindus. And if you look at old days, Rajagurus, they were basically very learned men, but they worked for the victory of king and basically the well-being of the kingdom. They did not basically think that wisdom means not caring about things. Wisdom means acting as though you care deeply about things, but in the end, whatever happens, not caring, leaving it, moving on to the next action. So that attitude was unfortunately lost over the last couple of millennia. So that inaction coupled with the ability of other people to study you, find your fault lines, and really attack you on those fault lines resulted in an issue. And we, on the other hand, the other side that was attacking us had much bigger fault lines. But the thing is, we didn't care. We didn't do any purvapaksha on them. We didn't study them. We didn't analyze them. We didn't try to attack them because we were conditioned to think that everybody is inherently good. So we basically that naive trust in people that everybody is good. See, this is the problem with the world. Those who are good tend to believe that everybody is good, and those who are bad tend to believe that everybody is bad and approach it that way, and basically they that killer instinct will come from that. So the thing is, see, sarvam khalvidam brahma, the core essence of all beings is Brahman. But the thing is, you are not dealing with the core essence. You're dealing with the surface qualities. When you are in this world, material world, you're dealing with various surface qualities that are always at loggerheads. So, for example, Rama did not say after he learnt the essence of Vedanta from Vasishtha in the form of Yoga system. He did not say Ravana is Brahman, I am Brahman, Sita is also Brahman. So Brahman took away Brahman, let Brahman have Brahman. I'll just sit here. No, he went and killed Ravana. But the thing is,
Right.
even as he killed Ravana, he kept in at the back of his mind, he realized that I am Brahman, this person is Brahman. But at the surface level, this Brahman is manifesting as this evil, and the Brahman inside me is manifesting as this warrior and engaging in this action. So the action did not bind him. He was not seething with anger or anything. He basically he was a Jitendriya. He did not really have. He was basically a Vetaraga Bhayakrodha Sadhidir Muruchate. Like Sri Krishna said, he was a Siddha Prajna. He basically saw that this aspect of Brahman is doing this evil thing and also doing a lot of bad in the world. So Brahman is manifesting through me and engaging in this war and killing this. So, but the thing is, even till the end, he had no evil intentions toward Ravana. But the thing is, it was his dharma to kill Ravana. He did it. So that is the attitude Rama had. So that is the attitude that Shivaji had. But unfortunately, many people, their attitude was kind of like, uh, well, everybody is good in the end. So let us give them the benefit of doubt. It is good to give people the benefit of doubt, but when you are under attack, when people are trying to destroy your roots, you have to understand them and you have to fight. So I think by the time the intentions of the foreign invaders was realized, it was already too late. They basically became too strong. And like I said earlier, the other factor is the division among Hindus. This is a big problem.
I will come to that
Because
in a minute.
Hinduism is,
And I wanted to thank you for a brilliant opening that you gave, the historical perspective of how we became what we became due to narratives and fault lines being exploited against
right.
us. I align with many of your thinkings, and I've been saying this on my show for many, many years that, though Swami
Mhm.
Vivekananda gave the call for arise, awaken, and assert, I add
Yeah.
most humbly Vibhuti Jha's fourth A to that is action. Because if you do not act, your knowledge is meaningless.
Yeah.
So this is my thought as well. However, I
Yeah.
wanted to come back to you on something very important. You made very significant mention of two things. One is the forcible conversion of Hindus to other faiths, the invaders' faiths. And the second was that how systematically others did Purva Paksh on us, we did not do any Purva Paksh on them. That
Yeah.
is probably the reason when I talk to my American friends, they say that the way you describe about your faith, Sanatan faith, makes huge sense. But why don't you talk about it? That's where we missed out on. So there is a very important point why I believe that if we do not act, as you very rightly said, act to protect and defend ourselves, we are soon going to face a scenario where our existence will be threatened. And I say this based on this fact that Sanatan is dead and gone in what was once upon a time the Sharda Peeth in Kashmir. Sanatan doesn't live in the area of Sindh, right? Sanatan doesn't survive anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's gone. So gradually, one by one, we are being territorially, decimated. We are being territorially invaded. And that's how we have lost areas which were once upon a time Akhand Bharat. So think about it, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, we have lost our historical heritages in these
Yeah. Yeah.
areas. And they are no longer anything to do with Sanatan. Is that a threat that we are facing in India right now and globally, where we are being decimated under the caste banner? And how come we did not use our wisdom, you and I included, and the rest of the people, to drive the correct narrative of Varna? and we let ourselves be overrun. That's the
You
important
make some
point.
very good points there. See, that is indeed correct. If you look at Akhand Bharat, several parts of Akhand Bharat have pretty much no Sanatan Dharma left over at this point of time. They have been converted to other religions. But the thing is, the way I like to say it is, the heart, the soul of what was Akhand Bharat is still following Sanatan Dharma. It is still 80% Hindu. And that part, of course, the effort to basically reduce it further is going on. There are some states that are in serious danger of losing Sanatan Dharma over the coming decade. But the thing is still it's basically like you are cutting off the limbs. But as long as the heart and brain are there, the body will basically be fine. My opinion is, astrologically speaking, I expect that over the next decade, there are some existential risks to India in some parts of India. But the thing is, I don't expect it is across India. I expect that again, the threat keeps converging from outside. So it is basically some parts towards the borders of India, some border states are at risk. For example, Kerala, Bengal, etc. There are certain states that are at risk. But the thing is, what I really genuinely expect is, towards the end of this decade, actually it already started, but towards the end of this decade, the renaissance in Sanatan Dharma, the renaissance in Hindu thinking, that will basically become stronger, and that will protect the rest of India. And I will not be surprised if over the next 2-3 decades, if parts of Akhand Bharat which were lost to Sanatana can actually become footholds of Sanatana again. Let us take a step back. See, people think that Hinduism is a threat from a couple of other religions, couple of other Abrahamic religions that basically attacked Hinduism and converted people over the last millennium. That is true. That will go on for another decade or so. But the thing is, the way I look at it, there is a bigger threat to all religions, Hinduism as well as Islam, Christianity, all religions. The threat is from atheism, from agnostic, rationalistic atheism. Because if you look at the world today, the youngsters, they're not really as religious as the previous generations, and we are living in a world of fast change and focus on material things. So, and if you look at even Islamic countries, you see people who are not really religious, who follow religion just for societal sake on the surface level, but they don't really care about their religion. That number, they live in secret, but that number is increasing even in the Islamic world. And in the Europe and US, there are more youngsters who are not really devout Christians. So what I want to say is, my expectation is, astrologically speaking, especially towards the end of this decade and next decade, I expect that atheism will be a bigger risk to the entire world of religions, not just to Hinduism. So, while it is important that we have to fight against the narrative set by other religions against Hinduism at this point of time, it is very important to go back to the first principles of Sanatan Dharma, because one thing that separates Sanatan Dharma from the rest of the religions is that it has very strong first principles. And also it has two aspects, unlike other religions, which are based on one particular book or one particular prophet or one particular set of teachings that are basically cast in stone. Sanatana Dharma is based on two sets of teachings. There are some core principles, first principles, which are never changing, which are absolute. They are not relative. They are permanent. They are absolute. That is why Sanatana Dharma has survived for, I don't know how long, but many millennia. The exact way it is practiced may change, but the core principles, the first principles, are always valid. For example, the teachings of Upanishads, Vedas, etc., those I call as the first principles. They are unchanging, absolute principles. On the other hand, there are changing relative principles, like you do Sanjha 3 times a day, or you do so and so puja, you worship so and so devata. Tomorrow, there may be a different form that is worshipped by most people. Maybe now it is Ramakrishna. Maybe thousands of years later, there will be a different avatara that people worship. It doesn't really, or maybe people will go back to the Vedic times and worship Prajapati, Indra, Agni, Soma, Surya, etc. It doesn't, that is secondary. The iconography, the characteristics of the gods, and the way you worship, you may do yajna, you may do homa, you may do puja, you may do dance and singing. There are various ways. Hinduism, the Sanatana Dharma, the beauty is it's not one way, or my this is the only way. There are many ways, and the thing is they keep evolving. Hinduism is open to reinterpretation and basically adaptation to Desikala Patra. There is a clear notion in our Shastras that Desha Kala Patra are very important. Desha is where you are, which place. Kala is which era you are in, what is the time frame. And then Patra is the capability of the person, the nature of the person. So based on Desha Kala Patra, what is the right thing, what is your dharma changes. So it's not fixed. It's not like you have to do namaz 5 times a day and you have to do only this mantra. No, we say you like Gayatri mantra, you do Gayatri mantra. If it is too complicated because of the ups and downs, the intonation, do Hare Rama, that mantra, Hare Krishna mantra. If not, do Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. You like an Ugradevata, a fierce form of Devata, because you want to activate the fierceness within you. Worship Durga or Kali or Chandi, like that. You want somebody very calm, worship Lalita, or like that. You have so many options, and it has been a strength as well as a weakness. Weakness in the sense that the apparent contradictions within Hinduism, within Sanatana Dharma, the apparent lack of one way, and then the existence of so many different ways that has been used against us by our enemies, by our competitors, as a weakness to create further divisions among us. So that way it has become a weakness, but it is actually in the long run it is a strength, because it allows people to basically pursue what is natural to them. When you force people to pursue what is unnatural to them, it doesn't last. And unfortunately, some of the modern religions of Kali Yuga, that is what they are doing. They are forcing people to do what is not necessarily natural to them. So the long and short of it is, there is this concept of adapting with the times and with the place and with the capability of the person that is very inherent to Hinduism. So we have to, instead of making it a weakness, we have to use it as a strength. And I just want to leave you with another interesting thought. While other religions come under threat in the coming couple of decades, there is an opportunity for Hinduism to digest those. See, people talk about, Sri Rajiv Malhotra makes brilliant points about how Christianity and other religions try to digest other religions. But the thing is, look at it. Sanatana Dharma is a big tent. It is basically a conglomeration of so many different concepts that have lived, that have coexisted very harmoniously. So, for example, if people who are coming to India and trying to convert Hindus to Christians say Christ is a God, Christ is the Son of God, etc. One way to deal with it is, you guys are stupid. Another way to deal with it is, yeah, he's the Son of God, but you know who's God? Krishna or Shiva, whoever. Basically, he's just one of the many sons. So basically, accept, just like Buddha was accepted as an avatar of Vishnu and digested into Hinduism. See, this is what at the time of Adi Shankara happened. When Hinduism was under threat by Buddhism was sweepingly taking over entire India. Buddha was just absorbed into Sanatana Dharma. He is just an avatar of Vishnu, and now what he taught fits in Hinduism. So, like that, it is possible to take some of the core concepts of Bible, fit them in Hinduism, and then basically things that are inconsistent, throw them away, and then basically absorb that way. And then, of course, majority of Christians will not take it, that accept it. But the thing is, as more and more Christians start accepting this, you end up digesting Christianity into Hinduism. So I'm just laying out a long term, a
No, no,
thing that could play out
you
in
are
the long term.
absolutely correct,
But the thing
because
is,
I'll tell you.
Hindus don't
What
think
what
along
I,
these lines. They don't want
Absolutely.
to
What I want to, given the paucity
cannibalize
of
others.
time, given the paucity of time, I wanted to. This is a fabulous conversation. I think we need to have more on this because you have brought in significant actionable points. Significant actionable points in the sense that when you tell that somebody comes to convert you, I said this. I said that, hey, if Jesus and Muhammad wanted me to be, God wanted me to be anything else other than Vibhuti, he could have given me birth anywhere else. But I am Vibhuti. So if by trying to convert me to either or faith isn't is a sin against God's original intent. So when I throw that question to people who try to convert me, they get stumped. They have no answer for that. That's the point which I'm trying. I brought in a lovely item that Sanatan is eternal. You are absolutely correct. All the religions as practiced, they have been established as a date specific. On a date specific, those faiths were established. So the question here is very important. Is that as and when, like you said, that in next decade, Sanatan will rise. I have said it in my show here that this century belongs to Sanatan. It is the question is back to what you said, how we take that messaging forward, how we take that narrative forward, because the soul will survive, the body will live even if the limbs are cut off, but it is as good as a sitting cabbage, rotten cabbage. I'm alive, but I can do nothing. And that's the point which is very important for all Sanatani and Hindus to recall that it's time for action is here and now. Because if you don't, as the phrase goes, you will be dealt a death with thousand cuts. And that's what is important for us to figure out. And that's why I feel that if we do not get into an actionable mode now, knowing what we know, Puru Paksh, as we have seen now, what our enemy wants. Rise of atheism, for example, is purely out of the disgust and disbelief on standard religious practices. So religion as practiced today is the cause of rise of atheism. Because where was God? Why didn't he save people
Right.
from dying from COVID? Why did COVID come about? Where was God? So there are fundamental questions being asked about the existence of God himself by the atheists, right? So this is what is critical for us to think about it in the remaining 3 or 4 minutes that we have. And I want to urge you to come back again because there are significant actionable points that we need to indulge in. What are those 2 or 3 actionable points that Sanatanis must take today to prevent the onslaught? Because as the saying goes, as you rightly said, if the barbarian is at the gate to cut your throat, offering him lassi and idli will not save your life.
Figuratively, of course, in this case. Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
When the barbarians are at the gate, you have to act. So, what can you
yes,
act? First of all, we kind of touched on it earlier. Just like other people do Purvak Shanju and basically try to pick your fault lines and try to brainwash you about the inferiority of your own religion, you can do the same to others. You don't have to be on the back foot and defend yourself. You can, because there are much bigger fault lines in other religions.
yes.
But when somebody from within does, and that's what the Europeans did. They used Hindus to criticize Hinduism. So what you
That's
should
right.
do is, there are, whether you take Christianity or Islam or the other religions, there are disgruntled people in those religions who don't buy what the religion teaches. So get them on your side, basically train them to debate their own counterparts. So that basically Hindus don't really do. There aren't too many Hindu action groups that basically spend money or effort on this kind of activities like other religions do. So it is time to basically encourage those activities and pick those fault lines. And those fault lines may be between different sects in that religion, or it may be between atheists, agnostics in that religion versus practicing devout followers of that religion. So pick those fault lines and try to exaggerate those in those areas. And second thing, don't expect instantaneous results. This kind of things are long-term things. If you start action, it will bear fruit after a long time. So remember Krishna's word. So pick those fault lines and create the infrastructure for attacking those and weakening from within. And secondly, realize the openness of Hinduism. Don't take it as a weakness. Portray it as a strength, and create a narrative where Hinduism is a big tent which allows various practices, and also stop believing the narrative that there are different gods: Christian God, Muslim God, Hindu God. Say that there is just one God, and Sanatana Dharma dealt with that God, and that God can be approached in many ways, because what people call secularism today is inherent to Sanatana Dharma. But the thing is, it's not godless secularism, but it is basically secularism with God. So there are many ways to God. The thing is, if a path to God says that this is the only path, you have to throw stones or people walking other paths, that's not a valid path. So if you basically insist on these these concepts, these are universal concepts. This is something that atheists and agnostics can also appreciate. So there are certain core principles, first principles of Sanatana Dharma, which are appealing to agnostics and seculars also. And also there is a big correspondence between Vedanta and quantum mechanics. So try to emphasize those points so that people see the scientific nature of Hinduism. And then try to basically create a narrative that says that practices are not superstitions, because that is another thing. All Hindu practices have been called superstitions by other religions, blindly accepted it. The practices, they reinforce certain notions in your mind. So go back to the first principles again and understand the reason for practices, and also simplify practices where appropriate. Some practices have devolved into something really elaborate and meaningless. So go to the first principles, make your practices meaningful, and allow variety of practices, and emphasize the variety within Hinduism, not as a weakness, but as basically an all-compassing nature. And welcome people from other religions. This is the other thing. When people want to convert to Hinduism, see, without any force, without any strong effort, there are so many people who converted to Hinduism across the world, especially in the West, and nowadays even in Africa. There are many converted Hindus, and this happened without force because they see the logic in it, and this is in spite of our lack of effort. So imagine if we put effort to basically show the strength of Hinduism and the universal nature of Hinduism. See, all these people across the world who are practicing the Abrahamic religions that came only 1500 years back, genetically, they have the genes of people who follow the previous pagan traditions which existed across the world. So talk about those, because those are very similar to Sanatana Dharma. In fact, in my book, they're actually extensions of, they are parts of the universal Sanatana Dharma. So take them back to their roots, and that will make it easier for them to connect with the Sanatana Dharma. So weaken, that is another way to weaken the modern religion. So start attacking those religions. Don't try to play defensive all the time. And I just want to say one word at the end. See, if a big whale has been attacked by a smaller whale, and the smaller whale has eaten some of his parts, bitten some of his body parts, it can't get scared and run away. Attack the smaller whale and try to eat it, because then you can eat it actually. You are bigger. And I guarantee you, Sanatana Dharma, in spite of its weakness over the last millennium, it is the bigger whale when it comes to religions. It is basically it's all-compassing nature, it's permanent nature, is emphasis on first principles which are very logical, very meaningful. That basically gives it an upper hand. But the thing is, because of our defensive mindset, because of our inactive mindset, we started to believe that no, we are doomed. No, you are not doomed. Start attacking back. Don't just defend yourself. That is important, but attack. Start attacking the other side. That is my
Thank you,
concluding
thank you
message to
so much
your
for the
audience.
message to attack. That's so important because it is to my close. It is to my heart as well. It's time to act, and you very rightly said that Sanatana Dharma has such significant scientific base to it that you can't deny it. It's yours and my weakness, the individual Hindu's weakness of the docility of nature that has come by the mind becoming, always
That's the word.
defensive part of it. Yeah, so we have to kind of begin to assert and act on
Yeah.
it. And I want to say this something very important because this is what I do, believe it or not. And I urge all the viewers to think about it. Don't become defensive about why you don't eat beef. So when the Christians and Muslims ask me, you guys are cow worshippers and all that, I said, hey, you don't eat pork and pig. I'm not complaining about it. Why should you complain about my not eating cow? Likewise, I tell the Christians, why don't you eat horse meat instead of cow meat? Why do I have
And
to
you don't eat
defend?
dogs. You don't eat
You don't
dogs.
eat
You
dogs.
love
Why
the
not?
love dogs,
Exactly. So we have to kind of narrate it.
and
And
cow is actually
something which
more
I
useful than dogs.
exactly. So the question is very simple. Here is that you and I individually, I'm not talking about Mr. Rao and Vibhuti Jha, but all of us have to remember that scientific base of Sanatan Dharma is enormously true. It can't be denied. And I always say this, that the established religions which were established on a date specific, their essential base is fear and ignorance. Because we now know that thunder and lightning doesn't happen because gods are angry. We know that. We know the essential truth today. Why don't we talk about it? Now, listen, I have really enjoyed listening to you, and I hope the viewers do too. And you brought in the astrological element in this. We want to talk about that because I believe in astrology. My father was a reader of Panchangs. People do 7-day weather forecast and they're thrilled about it. My father used to tell us what is going to happen on a particular day because of the configuration of stars. It is a precise science only if you know how to read it. And that's what is important for people to understand. So, Rao Saab, thank you very much for coming on the show. To the viewers, as I always say, please like, subscribe, and support our channel. I always end my program by invoking you in the belief that Satyameva Jayate, but for Satya to triumph, for truth to triumph, you and I have to stand behind it. We have to rise for it. So thank you very much for joining today, and have a wonderful week ahead. And we will talk again very soon. Rao Saab, thank you very much. And we want to continue the dialogue in a couple of other programs as well.